Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the show. I have not done this little disclaimer in a little while, so here it is. I am not a medical professional. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, an early childhood special education teacher, and certified life coach. If you feel that you need more support, please reach out to a psychologist or a medical professional who can give you that type of support. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. Today, we are deep diving into a topic that isn't talked about enough, even though we struggle with it quite often. And that is ADHD paralysis. I know that you have felt stuck, unable to start a task, project, or move to the next step, no matter how important it is. You came to the right place, because I still struggle with this. So we are going to break down what ADHD paralysis is, why it happens, and then some practical tips to get yourself going again. Are you ready? Let's get started. So let's start off with kind of defining ADHD paralysis. And since ADHD paralysis can look so different for each person, I want you to think about what it means to you in your life. How does it show up for you? Personally, I get stuck when I need to generate ideas without inspiration. Like this podcast topic came from an inspiration of somebody doing one of my polls underneath the Spotify podcast where you can vote or comment, a topic that maybe you would like to hear about. Sometimes there's polls there, and my comments are always open for questions, comments, takeaways, and all of that. So when I don't have any inspiration, coming up with those ideas is really, really hard for me. Also, the task that feels hard and looming. I have to do something in a new or different way. Those are two ways that can really push me into ADHD paralysis. And or when I need to make decisions that are super important. Recently, I actually got stuck in a paralysis for 2 years. And I didn't get my hair cut because my hair girl took a break when I was planning on getting my hair trimmed and done. And I didn't know where to go. I am very, very, very protective of my hair. So I was nervous. I have long hair. It's like a limb to me. I've been growing it since high school and I'm 33 years old. I thought it would take forever. I didn't want to pay. I thought it would be super expensive, etc., etc. My brain is giving me all of these things because it's trying to keep me safe, even though a haircut is not going to hurt me. So I finally decided to go to a Great Clips around where I live, and I was super specific, and I shared my worries with the haircut, with the cosmetologist, and she totally understood. She did a great job. It only took 25 minutes, and it cost a total of $30 with tip. In general, ADHD paralysis occurs when the brain feels too overwhelmed, leading to an inability to start or complete tasks. In the ADHD brain, this is not a choice. It's a response. It's an automatic response, and usually it's triggered by anxiety, decision fatigue, and or a huge sense of overwhelm by the size, complexity, and or the importance of a task. This is common in the ADHD brain due to our executive dysfunctions, which can make it more difficult to organize, plan, prioritize, and manage time effectively. Do you relate to this? On a small scale, it can look like the inability to decide what to wear for work that day, causing you to be late, or not being able to start a podcast episode because you have no ideas or way too many ideas. This can lead to anxiety, guilt, overwhelm, and frustration, which can negatively impact our relationships, our productivity, and our self-esteem. ADHD paralysis is rooted in the tangled up executive dysfunctions that we have, plus anxiety and overwhelm. Hi there, friend. Just your friend Carmen here to remind you, or just to inform you, that a lot of the information and tips that I give do come from my membership and what I learn in my group coaching program, Focused, by Kristen Carter of the I Have ADHD podcast. If you use the link in my show notes, we both save money. Because, who doesn't need to save money, especially when we're trying to help ourselves? It's helped me improve in so many ways. So if you can afford it, go check it out and check out her free content because it is amazing. All right, back to the show. So now that we have defined ADHD paralysis, let's talk about why we get stuck. There are many reasons why we get stuck in ADHD paralysis. I, through my research, found lists as big as 10 reasons why and 20 reasons why. And for the sake of time, since some of them were very similar to each other, I narrowed it down to the 6 reasons that this can happen. Before we dive into those 6, I want you to remember that ADHD brains are wired differently. Our prefrontal cortexes are not fully developed, and we struggle to do the things that neurotypicals find quote-unquote easy, okay? So part of this is giving yourself grace. Okay, so here are the 6 reasons that we get stuck. I'm going to list them first and then deep dive into each one in more detail. So the 6 reasons we get stuck are: 1, emotional dysregulation; 2, difficulty prioritizing; 3, overwhelm and or decision paralysis; 4, dopamine deficiency; 5, perfectionism; and 6, time blindness. So the first one being emotional regulation. This can show up for a few reasons. 1, you're already emotionally heightened and something sets you overboard. It can also happen if the specific thing that you can't do triggers a strong emotion for one reason or another. Like you need to clean out that room, but it triggers an emotion because the room that you need to clean out is of a loved one who has passed away. It can even be on a smaller scale. I'm just coming up with an example off the cuff. It can happen mid-project because a bump in the road caused frustration, fear of failure, and or anxiety leading to shutdown. The stress, feeling like a failure, and anxiety can make the paralysis worse, making it even harder to get unstuck. The second reason that we tend to get stuck is the inability to prioritize. As we grow up, our brains, ADHD brains, do not develop the ability to prioritize naturally in a top-down order as neurotypical brains do. In the ADHD brain, unless we intentionally prioritize things, it is as if all of the tasks, thoughts, and emotions are at the same level. They are all poking at you and yelling at the same volume. This makes it hard to know where to start, what's most important, or what direction to even go. And this leads right into reason number 3, decision and overwhelm paralysis. When this happens, the tasks are still all screaming at the same time and at the same volume, but there are also a ton of them, and they are all new or complex, and they're important, and or you believe that they will take a long time, or you have a fear of failure. This leads to mental overload, and sometimes even cycles of burnout. Don't worry, we will go into tips at the end here. But it can also happen when we have a multitude of decisions to make as well. Like you have decisions to make for work, for at home, for in your relationship, etc., etc. These things, because it's so much, can really throw our brains into ADHD paralysis. Okay, we're 3 down, 3 to go. You still with me? The 4th reason that we get stuck is that pesky dopamine deficiency, that broken reward system in our brain. The fact that our dopamine gets sucked up so fast in our brain, we don't always have that dopamine reward to move forward. Dopamine is motivation, right? When you get a shot of dopamine, it gives you motivation to do stuff. Our brains, they release the dopamine after we do something, but our brains suck it up so fast before it gets to the other receptor that we don't feel it. And lower levels of dopamine means less gets done, unless we manufacture our own motivation. This is usually when we procrastinate, and sometimes even procrastinate by doing other tasks that are just less important. Also referred to as procrastivity. Our brains are tricky, so you gotta watch out for those types of things. The 5th reason is perfectionism. We need the quote-unquote perfect conditions to start, or we over-edit at the end so we don't have to complete the task or project in fear of failure. This tends to happen when you have pressure or the outcome of a task feels super heavy. Perfectionism is self-harming, and it's a way to really lower your self-esteem. But it can really, really drive us into ADHD paralysis. And number 6, last but certainly not least, is time blindness. As ADHD brains develop, they do not develop the perception of time passing. We cannot feel time passing. As I look up and see that I've been recording for about 20 minutes now, it feels like 5 minutes. We cannot build this thing in our brain. Okay? We just don't have that perception of time passing. And this leads to the inability to estimate how long something will take, transition and travel time out the window, and so much more. This is why timers, visual clocks everywhere, and alarms are so important. As Dr. Russell Barkley puts it, we live in the now or the not now. Okay, now that we have gone over what ADHD paralysis is and why it happens, how do we get unstuck? How do we move forward? Before I give you some practical tips, I want to encourage you to practice self-regulation and emotional regulation. Improving your emotional regulation skills will help you in these moments of ADHD paralysis and even lessen them. So, here are some tips that you can try today to help you get unstuck. Try to gamify the task. Whether you're racing the timer, trying to beat the podcast or TV show, make it competitive. This one is one of my favorite go-tos. I'm racing the timer right now so that I won't stop recording and re-recording and editing and all the other things, because I know you guys like my shows raw and authentic. But gamifying tasks like laundry and dishes, those things, that's a really, really useful way to gamify things to get stuff done. Next, break down the tasks into smaller steps. Break overwhelming tasks into bite-sized, manageable pieces. Focusing on one step at a time makes starting easier and builds momentum and lessens the chance of that paralysis. Use timers like with the Pomodoro technique. Some set timers for shorter intervals, like 25 minutes of work followed by 5-minute breaks. I personally like to use longer intervals where I work for an hour and then I take like a 15-minute break. And then there's that prioritizing. Prioritize with a to-do list. Create a simple to-do list that clearly outlines your top priorities. Use priorities in a way that, you are thinking it's something that is due, something somebody's waiting on me for. This is also a great place where we can use ChatGPT. ChatGPT and Goblin.tools are amazing resources for helping you prioritize and break down tasks. Try them out. AI can be your friend. The next one is visual reminders. Use visual reminders like sticky notes, checklists, task boards, whiteboards. Keep those important tasks visible. We have a memory that is like an out of sight, out of mind, so this can serve as a prompt and reduce the sense of being overwhelmed by unclear priorities and way too much to do. I don't personally use sticky notes, but I love my tack board and I love my whiteboard. I also write on mirrors a lot. And if I do need to remember something super important from one night to the next morning, a sticky note is really useful because I stick it to the middle of my computer screen, the first place that I go each day. Another tip is to try body doubling. Whether you're working alongside of somebody in person or virtually, or even using recorded body doubles on YouTube, having another quote-unquote person present can help you stay focused and accountable. The next tip I have for you is to start with easy wins. Write down a few things on your to-do list that you did already so that you can cross them off and get that little bit of dopamine with those easy wins. Then tackle the small, easy tasks first. This can create a sense of accomplishment and help break the paralysis, making it easier to transition onto bigger tasks. The next one is use rewards. Set up a reward system for completing tasks. Whether you're using small rewards for each part of the project or you're using something like what I use, which is filling up a container with confetti until I get my big reward. The next one is to limit distractions. Reduce environmental distractions like your phone, social media, or clutter. If you can work in clutter, that's totally cool, but I've never met anybody who can multitask and be on social media and be productive at one time. So close those windows and open only windows that are connected to your work. Give yourself a timer and put your phone away. Let it charge for a bit. And you'll see how fast you can get things done when you have limited some of those distractions. Sometimes I just even use those distractions as a reward. Like you can use your phone and go on social media after you do this task. The next one is to set time limits for decisions. If you have important decisions to make that are, decisions that take about a week or a day or a couple days, give yourself a set time. So for example, 20 minutes, 1 day, 1 week, depending on the amount of the decision. Like moving into a house, yes, it's going to take a little bit longer, but deciding what you're going to eat for breakfast or whatever, those things need to be set because we can take way too long trying to decide, and then all of a sudden we're running late and it's just, then we can't decide and we just don't decide at all. So doing this can reduce the anxiety of that overthinking that contributes to paralysis. The final tip I want to leave with you is to practice self-compassion. please recognize that ADHD paralysis is a part of the ADHD experience. So be kind to yourself when it happens. Remember at the beginning, I said I still struggle with this. One of the key things that I've learned is that the stress and guilt can just worsen the paralysis. It never makes it better. So approaching it with understanding really, really can help you move forward. I promise. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a quick challenge this week. The next time you feel that paralysis creeping in, I want you to pick a strategy from today's episode or one that you've thought of and give it a try. I have a freebie follow-along in the show notes that you can use to reflect on and use when you don't know what you want to try. Maybe one thing works better for you than the other. Just to get started, do whatever feels right for you. Okay? So that's all I have for now on Authentically ADHD this week. I really hope that this episode helps you feel a little less alone in your struggles with ADHD paralysis, and that you're walking away with some concrete tools to get unstuck that you can use today. As always, if you found value in today's episode, please rate, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. And don't forget, you can even share it to social media and tag me so I can give you a big virtual hug. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Carmen, and until the next time, stay authentic, and we will talk soon. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. Just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year that has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it binded and sent to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there.